Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anime Dreams. Today, we're exploring the intriguing scenario: what if neglected Naruto discovered a buried secret in his anger? Disclaimer: the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's dive right in. The village hidden in the leaves was engulfed in panic and chaos. It appeared as if it had descended into a nightmare. Catastrophe struck when they had to abruptly defend themselves against an unfathomable monstrosity. This terror manifested as the mighty Kyubi no Yoko, the strongest of the 9 great Bijou. The beast stood tall with its 9 long tails, massive paws, and formidable muzzle. Its sharp teeth glinted under the full moon, and its blood-red eyes blazed with a blend of fury and curiosity as it roared, setting the forest ablaze. It was pure devastation as the beast obliterated everything in its path with just a flick of its tails. "Damn! We're getting massacred out here!" shouted a Jounin, as the beast unleashed another chakra blast, transforming into flames and engulfing more buildings and trees, fortunately devoid of civilians. "Quickly, get the wounded out of there. We have to hold out until Yondaime-sama arrives." The Jounin commanded another Chunin, clinging to the hope that their leader would arrive in time to find a way to stop the monster. "Kami-sama. We can't withstand this much longer. Hurry, Minato. We need you now." These were the thoughts of Sarutobi Hiruzen, the former Hokage, as he helped his village fend off the beast. Hokage Tower. The youthful face of Minato Namikaze was etched with a scowl, reflecting his contempt and sadness at the dire situation. They had received word only a few hours ago about the Bijou's impending attack, and the limited defenses they managed to assemble had been crushed by the beast. Now, 1/10 of the village lay in ruins, and his shinobi were being killed faster than an Uzumaki consumed ramen. Minato knew there was only one way to stop the beast: sealing it away. This task was easier said than done, as the only seal powerful enough to contain the beast was deadly. The Shiki-Fun, or Reaper Death Seal, required summoning death itself to create a powerful seal. The cost was one's life and soul, meaning he wouldn't survive this plan. Minato knew the vessel for the 9 tails had to be a newborn, and that night, only 3 babies were born, his own triplets. His wife had gone into labor just hours earlier, giving birth to a boy and 2 girls, Naruto, Nariko, and Nanami. He despised the fact that he had to condemn 2 of his children to the harsh life of a Jinchuriki, fraught with danger and conflict. The weight of this decision was nearly unbearable for him, even though he knew he had no other choice. If he survived, he feared his wife's wrath would be overwhelming, sending a shiver down his spine. "Hokage-sama." He turned to see a man burst into his office, a breathless doctor struggling to speak. But Minato didn't need words, he knew his children had arrived. "It's time," were his final thoughts before he left for the hospital. Kushina Namikaze looked down lovingly at the 3 bundles in her arms. On her right was little Naruto, who was almost the spitting image of his father with his blonde hair. The only feature he inherited from her was her beautiful amethyst eyes, which gleamed like precious stones. Naruto, exposed to the 9 tails chakra during labor, bore whisker marks on his cheeks, as did his sisters. In the middle was Nariko, who also resembled their father with her blonde hair streaked with red. She had deep navy blue eyes, slightly darker than their father's. On her left was Nanami, whose hair was a blend of red and blonde, with more red than blonde, and eyes identical to their father's. Both girls were energetic, making it difficult for them to fall asleep. The 3 babies stirred uneasily, sensing the malice of the 9 tails even from a distance. "Shh, it's all right, little ones. Mommy's here. She'll protect you. She won't let anything happen to you, my little angels." The babies calmed down, soothed by their mother's loving voice. Despite appearing calm and joyful, Kushina felt far from it. Inside, she was filled with fear. Their home was under attack by a monstrous creature. Kushina was a formidable ninja, known as the Red Death in her career, but even she, an A-rank ninja bordering on S rank, was hesitant to face such a powerful adversary. She prayed her husband would find a way to stop the crisis. The door opened, revealing a welcome sight. Minato entered, his fragile smile matching her own. He walked up beside her, his eyes filled with love for her and their children. "Aren't they beautiful?" Kushina asked. "They perfect," was the loving response she got from her husband. They then spent a few moments just watching as the children slept. To them it was a fleeting vision of perfection that made them feel fulfilled. But Minato knew he would have to ruin this moment of peace for the sake of his home. "Kushina," he called. The said woman looked at her husband, hearing the pain in his voice. "I'm going to have to use that seal. I'm going to have to use the Shiki-fun to seal the fox." As a response, his wife could only gasp after she got a hold of herself. "No, I will not have you use our babies for that, never." Minato sighed. He knew this was going to happen despite them both being masters of Fuinjutsu, therefore easily able to figure out what must be done. His wife would deny the necessity of making a jinchuriki. She always was the hopeful and dreaming one out of the two of them, while he took up the job of the realist. "We have no choice, nothing else can stop it, we have to do this for the sake of the village and our children." At this, his wife's face twisted in pain, like the thought of it caused her physical pain, and she started crying. "Then why do you have to die?" She looked up with a tear-stained face. "Why do our babies have to grow up without their To-san?" Minato himself had to hold in his own tears as he answered his wife's question. "Because it is my duty as Hokage and a father." Kushina lowered her head in resignation. Minato then took his daughters and said a parting word to his wife and son before proceeding to walk out the room. Normally he would have her eye shine away, but it just didn't feel right at the moment, and as he walked away he heard his wife say, "I love you." "Battlefield. Hold it off," was the cry of the shinobi as they fought the mighty fox. They had managed to get it all the way to the edge of the village thanks to their previous Hokage showing them just way he was, and still is called Shinobi no Kami. Suddenly there was a pillar of smoke and Gamebuta, the chief toad, attacked the fox, pushing it back even more. The crowd cheered for their Hokage. Though Sarutobi knew what was happening by the bundles in Minato's arms. He knew he was still needed, and he only hoped his wife and children would forgive him for what he was about to do. He called Kakashi, who was still fresh for battle because he was kept back because of his age. So he made his way to Gamebuta. "Minato, let me do the sealing. You have so much you still have to do," Sarutobi said, trying to make the younger man change his mind. However, Minato shook his head, stating that he was the Hokage and he had to do this himself, and the two men bowed their heads, but a split second later Sarutobi appeared behind him and knocked him out, taking the girls from his arms. "Kakashi, keep him safe while I finish this." "And Kakashi? Tell my wife and kids I'm sorry." The young man could only nod, still shocked about all of this. While Hiruzen summoned Enma the Monkey King, who said his goodbyes to his old friend. Sarutobi soon summoned the Shinigami, the Lord of Death, who quickly understood what he was supposed to do, while the fox suddenly calmed down as if understanding what was going to happen and was allowing it to happen, as if it had a choice in the matter at all. "Fun." With that cry, a great white flash happened, and when it was gone the fox was no longer in sight, and the two girls had two seals, one on each of their stomachs. As they cried, being woken up, a great man had fallen and lay still on the ground. Enma gave a pained sigh, letting a single tear fall before going back to his own world to mourn. Meanwhile, Minato Namikaze began to stir as he woke up, being held up by his student just in time to see the Enma disappear. He saw Sarutobi's unmoving form and the absence of the Kyuubi, and he put two and two together and jolted from where he was being supported. He ignored his student calling him and rushed to where the two girls. The deed was done and he could not change it, so he picked up his daughters and looked down at the third still form. "Thank you," were the last words he spoke to the man who just saved his life. Hospital. Kushina Namikaze saw the end to the fighting and realized what that must have meant, as was the evidence of her crying. Just then the door opened up and she saw someone she did not think of ever seeing again, her husband holding their daughters in his arms. Her crying stopped as he walked up to her, neither doing anything, as they looked awkwardly at each other, neither knowing what to do, until Kushina laughed and engulfed her husband and daughters in her arms, holding their children between them as they cried tears of joy. Their family was not destroyed. Later, a village meeting was held early in the morning. Minato stood holding his daughters, while a little ways back Kushina held their son Naruto. Good people of the Leaf, I know you all are in pain now with the loss of so many and the destruction brought about by the QB, but please do not sadden. We have survived thanks to the sacrifice of so many, and we have made it through to a new day, and we can rebuild what we lost. At this the crowd cheered from the conviction in their leader's voice. In fact, I hold here in my arms two heroes along with the help of the late Sandaime Hokage, who gave his life to save this village by sealing the yin and yang into these two girls, my daughters Nariko and Nanami Namikaze. At this the people broke into another cheer, not doubting the words of their cage, even though a few that did were pulled into the shadows and had it beaten into them. Later that night, Minato and Kushina watched their children sleep in their crib cuddling with each other. For them this was the perfect moment in all their lives. Finally everything was perfect. For them nothing could ruin this for them. Little did they know certain things will change everything, and only destruction would await if things went down a bad path. Life was a bitch, and they were about to learn it was always the calm before the storm. It had been quite a few years since the fox attacked the village. The people of Konoha still mourned the dead, but they already started rebuilding their village, and by now the village was back in top notch, especially with their trade line in Nami no Kuni. Everything was going so well. This went double for the Namikaze family. Namikaze compound. Currently Kushina was watching over the three kids while they each did their own things, while she was sitting with Mikoto Uchiha, her best friend since the academy. Meanwhile Mikoto's sons were also there seated with them watching the three other children. Kushina-chan, your kids sure are energetic. I almost feel sorry for you, but then again they inherit that from you. Although Naruto-kun seems a bit out of place, rather choosing to sit under a tree and read. He's such a quiet child. He reminds me of Itachi-chan being so mature. I bet you proud of him. Mikoto stated in a happy tone. While Itachi sighed, his mother was just so blunt. Well, Mikoto-chan, he has always been so quiet, and he always had stuffed in books. Honestly, don't know what to do anymore. Even Minato wasn't this quiet when he was younger. For once I wish he could maybe communicate more with his sisters. Kushina sighed in exasperation, which the other woman looked confused at. Why? Does Minato feel the same way? Doesn't he communicate well with them? I know Itachi-chan was like him a little, but he knew how to communicate with his cousins at least. Asked Mikoto, wearing a frown on her face. Meanwhile, although Itachi wasn't one for trouble and eavesdropping, he couldn't help listening in on his mother's conversation with the Udame's wife on the 4-year-old boy who sat in the shade of a tree a little ways from where they sat, with a book in his hands. It's not that he doesn't communicate well with them, because he does, it's just ever since he could talk properly he always complains when one or both of his sisters sleep next to him. He always says it hurts or it burns, but the doctors say he's fine. I can't help but think maybe he doesn't like his sisters. This was said with a tone of hurt by Kushina, and Mikoto frowned more. I don't believe this. There's something else at play here. I've seen the boy's eyes every time he looks at them. There's nothing but love and kindness in those amethyst eyes of his. While Mikoto thought upon this, Itachi had similar thoughts. Something's just not right here. Itachi's own thoughts were also analyzing the situation, and he knew what it was. It was on the tip of his tongue, but he just couldn't get it. Meanwhile, young Naruto sat under the tree reading up on advanced chakra manipulation. Chakra can sometimes change forms when trying to shape it. Firstly, you need an understanding of how it works and what makes chakra up and how it can be broken down. So Kushina-chan, has Minato and you started with their training? I know Sasuke started his training just a week ago and he's coming along nicely. Mikoto asked, trying to lighten up the mood, and Kushina nodded. Yes, we have. Minato decided he was going to train them in ninjutsu, chakra control and taijutsu, while I train them in fuinjutsu, genjutsu and kenjutsu, and we'll both be training them in weapons. Kushina said, brightening up with a grin. Wow! Well, how far are they with it? I'm sure they all took to fuinjutsu like fish to water. This, however, Mikoto found was not the right thing to say, as this brought Kushina to frown deeply. When it comes to ninjutsu, the girls excels. Learning at a quick rate, while Naruto also excels in it. He doesn't get it down as fast as they do. However, when it comes to chakra control, he is leaps and bounds in front of them because their control sucks. Then there's taijutsu. The girls are great because of their physical condition, but Naruto, while he is very good for his age, he just never wins against them. Again, the girls suck at fuinjutsu and genjutsu, which he excels at, and the same with taijutsu could be said about kenjutsu, but I'm proud of my girls. At this Mikoto once again frowned at Kushina. Can't see her son is a genius and a hard worker? Mikoto thought, shaking her head slowly at her best friend. One day Kushina-chan, this is going to come back and bite you. Meanwhile Itachi was shocked and impressed. The 4-year-old was very smart and he found himself all the more curious about this child. A month later, Naruto walked down the street of Konoha on his way to buy some ice cream from one of the stands to cheer him up, also as a reward for a chakra control exercise that he learnt all by himself. As he patted his wallet, Panther-chan, he couldn't help but think about all the changes with his ninja training during the past month and he frowned. To-san, Ka-chan, why do you favor Nariko-chan and Nanami-chan more than me? This was his thoughts as he thought about the past month. Flashback. A day after Mikoto and her sons came by, Minato and Kushina called a meeting in Naruto. Nariko and Nanami sat side by side on the couch before their parents. Alright kids. Your Ka-san and I have decided to change your training a bit. Firstly, we decided to hold off Fuinjutsu, Genjutsu and chakra control for a few more years. Another thing we have decided, since the girls hold the Kyuubi's chakra, they had to be trained first, so Naruto, we won't carry on training you until you all start the academy. Minato said happily, even though he just unknowingly hurt his only son by doing that, but the girls cheered and Kushina smiled, but Naruto frowned deeply. Ka-chan? To-san? How come the things I'm really good at are put on hold, and why is my training on hold just because the girls hold the Kyuubi's chakra? Why not hold off on the things that they excel in? Naruto asked, wearing the same deep frown, not understanding why his parents would stunt his growth. Naruto Namikaze. Stop being so selfish. We are doing this because your sisters need it more. And they will be targets. Kushina said in a disapproving tone, scolding her son, while Minato frowned at Naruto and the girls grinned. But Ka-san, what about me? Naruto never got to finish as his mother yelled for him to shut up and go to his room and not come down until she told him to, because she wasn't gonna tolerate any back-chatting. So he dutifully got up, ignoring his sister's looks of satisfaction, and went to his room and cried himself to sleep. The following weeks were hell for him, because every time his sisters made sure to get him into trouble, and their parents didn't believe when he said something and his sisters said differently. End of flashback. Naruto was so consumed by his thoughts he never noticed the old lady walking in front of him. Meanwhile, Elder Katsum Kurama of the Kurama clan was taking a stroll around the village to stretch a bit. The elder was currently dressed in what seemed to be a brown traditional kimono with a dark pink obi with white petals decorating it at the sleeves and bottoms. Her gray, brown hair was pinned up in a bun and her honey-colored eyes shone with happiness. Oof! Who the heck do you think you are bumping into? Oh, it's just a brat. The Kurama huffed and was about to carry on walking, that is, until... Hey! What's that supposed to mean? Naruto shouted in a burst of rare childishness, momentarily forgetting about apologizing to his elders. That young man was supposed to mean you just a snot-nosed brat. And you have no right to speak to your elders in that manner. Especially a clan elder of the Kurama clan. Elder Katsum barked at the 4-year-old boy, with a twinkle of amusement shining in her eyes. While Naruto just realized he was shouting at an elder and took a step back before bowing low to the woman. I'm so sorry, Elder-san. It was wrong and unjust to speak in the manner of which I have. And I should not have done so, but I was so unfocused and in my own thoughts. Please let me make it up to you. These were Naruto's words as he bowed, and the elder put on a thoughtful face as the boy looked up at her with his amethyst eyes. All right. Now we are talking. How about I some dango? Then I'll share my wisdom with your young mind. Sounds fair enough? Katsum spoke with a glimmer of curious mischief. Yes, Elder-san. That sounds fair enough. Naruto replied, happy that he won't get into trouble, and perhaps get some advice on genjutsu from this woman. After all, she came from the Kurama clan, and by the way she dressed you could tell she's one of their elders. So slowly the two made their way to the dango stand. You can cut the crap with Elder-san. The name's Katsum Kurama. And you are brat? She asked him, and he paid for the dango they bought. Naruto Namikaze. Elder, I mean Katsum-san. Came the response, and now know who she was talking to. She let out a small laugh but also grew curious. Say brat, I bet Hokage-sama and his wife has already started with your training, right? Which category do you excel in? She asked, not caring about clan stuff. She was never one for technicalities. Yes they have, but, well, I guess I excel in Fuinjutsu, Genjutsu, Chakra Control and Kenjutsu, Naruto said with a slightly sad tone which made Katsumi raise a brow, surprise and impression but also confusion. Really? I'm sure your training is going well then, she said, chewing on her dango with hawk-like eyes that only a trained ninja could. Actually, I was going to ask you for some tips on Genjutsu because my family, you see, they more busy training my sisters and so my training was put on hold, but I still want to train and I know you from the Kurama clan too. Naruto trailed off, having the decency to look ashamed, but there was a bitter glint in his eyes which darkened ever so slightly. What he said sent Katsumi for a loop. Were his parents playing favorites? This left a funny taste in her mouth. Well, if that's the case, I suppose I can give you some advice on that subject, but first, how much do you know about Genjutsu? At this she watched as his eyes lit up like a kid at a toy store. Genjutsu is mostly to do with the mind and causes one's mind to hallucinate and is mostly used to distract the enemy to take them out of battle quickly and is not something used by many ninjas. Naruto said this with confidence. While Katsumi smiled, not many children outside of our clan knows that. You know what, brat? I like you. Good job. Yes, that's what Genjutsu is, but Genjutsu is not like all the others. This is more like an art than anything else because it's only as good as the caster's imagination and willpower, therefore why many people can only do the simplest Genjutsus and don't study further into it. Genjutsu is something that you can't really master because of the limitless opportunities there are. In my clan, for one, we all study the art of Genjutsu and it runs through our veins to know the hows and whys of it. However, every decade there is someone born within our clan who can not only use illusions, but the illusions they use can cause physical damage to the body. See where I'm going with this? Genjutsu is something that can't be taught by someone, it's something you make from scratch. Therefore Genjutsu is the ultimate jutsu which depends on the person's control, will and imagination. Katsumi told him, which he sat wide-eyed with awe and wonder, so she mentally gave herself a pat on her back, thinking it was the same conversation she had with her granddaughter, Yakumo, a few months ago. Wow! Do you think I can become a Genjutsu specialist? He asked hopeful, and she just chuckled at him. He was one interesting brat, perhaps she could help him out just a little. Yep, if you practice hard enough and have the determination and imagination for it, I'm sure you can become a master in your own way. No doubt about it. She said this while ruffling his hair a little, and he beamed up at her. Well, brat. It's time I get home. I still have a granddaughter to talk to. It was nice meeting you. Good luck and thanks for the dango. The elderly woman said before getting up and walking away, not before she left a plain-looking scroll in his hands. Naruto looked at the scroll in his hands and read the title, Illusion Genjutsu, Chen, Illusion Technique, Chains. A huge smile flashed across his face and he ran out the stand and seen the lady in a distance. Thank you. He yelled to her and she turned around, flashing him a peace sign before walking on her way back to her clan compound, leaving Naruto to stare after her. 2 months later. After meeting Katsumi Kurama, it seemed to Naruto that was where his luck stopped, as not even a day later he drew a picture of his family and left to use the toilet, only to come back and see his parents praising Nariko about his picture that she claimed was hers, and because he confronted her about it he got punished by picking weeds for the next 2 days. Then Nanami breaks their mother's vase because she was running and he gets blamed for it just because he was there and they didn't believe him, so he was punished once again because Nariko and Nanami can do no wrong. That wasn't fair at all. Of course things looked like they were looking up for him when he found his father's Fuinjutsu book and decided to keep it, and he was coming along nicely for being self-taught. I mean, how many 4-year-olds can say they know how to make storage seals? Though it seemed to him that his sisters were trying to make his life a living hell, and throughout the past 2 months he found himself being excluded from curtain activities or being punished and called a liar, it had become so bad that for the first time Kushina raised her hand and brought it down on her own son, all things that left him bitter and hurt. He had slowly come to hate his sisters, especially since the past month was their birthday and the girls banned the other clan children from being friends with him. Flashback. It was their 5th birthday today and he felt like nothing could bring down his happy mood today. Things were finally looking up for him. Oh, how wrong he had been, how very wrong. Outside. Everyone, I have an announcement to make. Firstly, thank you for coming. And then secondly, Nanami and I are banning anyone who wants to be friends with us to be friends with Naruto because he's mean. Nariko stated, clapping her hands together with Nanami at her side nodding in conviction. The other kids all looked confused at this but walked over to the girls, even though some threw apologetic looks while he looked hurt and confused. He didn't say or do anything to them. End of flashback. That had been truly hurtful and sad for the blonde. Currently the girls in Naruto were unpacking the groceries for their mother as she went back to the market for something she forgot. Suddenly, out of pure reflexes, he pulled Nariko out the way as a kunai embedded itself into the wall and a ninja with the headband for Iwo with a slash across it, appeared and started chasing the three of them, who were now running almost to the gates of the compound. Both girls were so scared that they tripped and fell. This made Naruto turn back for them and he took two kunais for them. He turned around just as the shinobi brought down his kunai to cut the blonde. Naruto, who was running on adrenaline, ran through seals as fast as he could and set the genjutsu he had been working on for the past month on the shinobi, who stopped dead in his tracks and fell to the ground. Just as Naruto passed out, he could only think one thing before joining his sisters, who were both unconscious from shock: Ten no Shogai no Rakuen success. Heaven's faults paradise. But of course, when they woke up, everyone had come to a conclusion that the fox cast the genjutsu on the man to protect itself, and once again his sisters took his credit because of the fox. This had left him bitter and angry, and for the first time he could honestly say he hated his sisters with all his being. However, something far worse was going to happen, which would just nail the coffin shut and completely destroy this so-called happy family. All this would soon take place on the triplet's 7th birthday. Soon a legend would be born and a prophecy would come to play which will leave earth-shattering revelations. The sun slowly made its way into the sky and was shining, as people and shinobi started about with business. After all, they had a festival to set up because today it was the day the Sun Daime defeated the Kyuubi and sealed it into the Udaime's daughters. It was also their birthday as well, and many people bought a gift for each girl. Hospital, 10th floor, head medic's office. Humph. Shizune. Come look at all these people. Walking around without a care. Buying gifts for those two brats. This was stated by a blonde-headed woman who looked to be only in her early 30s. Her honey golden brown eyes narrowed in contempt at the villagers as a black-headed woman walked in the office. Her dark brown, almost black-eyed, held the same emotions. Hi. Tsunade-sama. It's as if they forget the Udaime has a son too. It's honestly shameful. Those girls think they will be able to outshadow Naruto Ototo. They have another thing coming. He is so much better than them. How Hokage-sama and Kushina-san can't see this is beyond me. Jiraiya-sama is even ashamed. He said every time he tries to include Naru-chan, they either get distracted by the girls or they brush it off and say Naruto's too busy stuffing his heads in books and pranking people. Even when we say he's not like that, they always saying he's my son, I should know. Yet they know nothing about him. Poor Naruto-kun. If I didn't still think they loved him a little, I'd say they'd forget him one day, and I doubt things would be the same again. Even while Shizune said this, it was like fate was laughing at her, because soon she and everyone would find out just how true her words were and how it would soon bring about changes, and big ones too. Tsunade sat with a cup of sake in her hand, twirled it around. If Shizune and her weren't so busy with the research lab today, they would sure go over to get Naruto, who she saw as a son, and celebrate with him. However, this was called in as an emergency that couldn't wait. She looked over at the cupboard on the side. Inside she had put the gifts Shizune and she bought for him. Maybe when they got out this hospital later today, she'll drop them off with an apology. I wish we weren't called into the research department today. We could have celebrated with Naruto. Tsunade sighed when she said this, and Shizune suddenly looked downtrodden before shaking her head. Well, let's get going. The earlier we start, the earlier we get to see Naruto-chan. Shizune said with conviction as she pumped her fist into the air, and you could practically see the stars in her eyes. Tsunade grinned. Hi. Let's go, Shizune. Shocking Shizune out of her mental state, the two left the office with the hope of seeing their surrogate son and brother. Unknown to them, the next time they saw him they would shed tears of horror and sadness. Namikaze compound. Minato and Kushina lie asleep on their bed. Well, they were asleep until the door was roughly tossed open. With the slamming noise and the two yells of Ka-san and To-san, the parents were rudely awoken. "Good morning, my angels. What do we owe the pleasure of this visit?" Minato's annoyance was covered up nicely. After all, who likes being rudely awoken? Especially when dreaming of making his family bigger. "To-san. You promised to take us to all our friends. Then go to the festival." Nanami's whiny voice was heard loud and clear as if speaking in a microphone, and Minato and Kushina inwardly flinched. "Yeah, Ka-san. Can we go now? Please?" Nariko, with her apparently adorable puppy dog eyes, quickly took her parents in the palm of her hands. With that, the two girls had them and almost everyone else wrapped around their pinky. Meanwhile, in another room not too far down from their parents' room, on a small bed lay Naruto, who was still asleep, and the reason for this was that he had stayed up the whole night working on a new genjutsu that could make him invisible to the world and that everyone will forget about him, well, except the people who actually care for him. All the while Nariko and Nanami dragged their parents out the house. When they were done, Naruto slowly came to when the front door closed. "Ugh. Stupid Naruto. Don't stay up so late, especially when the next day is your birthday. Tsunade Ka-san would have your hide for this." "Ugh. Wait a minute." Naruto, who was ranting and raving, suddenly realized the front door had banged shut, which had awoken him. Naruto ran to the cold window that had frost on it just to see his sisters and parents walking away from the house, all dressed up in nice warm mittens and scarves around their necks. He was shocked. Did they forget about him? Why were they leaving him at home? How could they be so cruel? Without knowing it, he had lost all sense and started running down the stairs on the cold wooden floor before tossing the door open and running out of the house. Meanwhile, Minato and Kushina were already almost out the gates without paying any attention to the surroundings and only on the girls. They finally stepped out the compound gates. That's when Minato and Kushina activated the seals on the compound. Not knowing this would be their biggest mistake ever. With Naruto, he ran and ran with his left arm braced in front of him, getting ready to push open the compound gates that just shut. Unknown to him, or maybe at the moment he forgot that there were seals on the gate. The minute his hand touched the just activating seals, a chakra surge happened and the gate seals that thought his arm was an extension of the pathways for the seals pumped an almost ungodly amount of chakra through his arm. In a sudden explosion of blood, the white snow covering the pathway was suddenly a blanket of blood, while Naruto, who was thrown back by the gate, cried put painfully with tears running down his face. He looked in horror at his left arm, which lay limply at his side. The blood oozing out was way too much and the pain was more than terrible. Naruto slowly gathered himself and ripped off his pants pipe and used it as a makeshift band-aid. He slowly made his way to the house, only to find out he couldn't get in because the same seals on the gate were also on the house, meaning he couldn't get into the house now. He chuckled bitterly. On his 7th birthday they forget about him. And even if he screamed for help, he knew no one would hear him. After all, there were silencing seals on the compound because of the girls who made noise, and especially when they were babies, because the girls screamed and cried, waking their neighbors up. Research Department. A shiver ran down Tsunade's back, a feeling of dread pooled in the pit of her abdomen. She tried to shake it off, yet it seemed as if it didn't want to leave, and she couldn't help but think something bad just happened. "Tsunade-sama? Are you all right? You look like you dazed out there. Is something bothering you?" One of the male medical researchers asked her, and she shook her head. "No, everything's fine, Dai-san. We get the laser so we can finally try cutting this piece of shit open. I don't have all day to spend in this place." She barked at him and he quickly got going to get that laser. While Tsunade looked down at this glowing purple rock the size of a boulder, for some odd reason this thing had just appeared out of nowhere, so they were tasked with finding out what it meant. Little did they know what they had in their midst. Hyuga Compound. "Neji ni?" A small girl with navy blue hair called out to a boy with dark brown hair. They both shared the same pupilless eyes, but while his was gray, hers was lavender. "Hi, Hinata-sama? What's wrong?" The boy, no more than recently turned 8, asked the girl identified as Hinata, who wore a light purple kimono. "I'm having another vision. Naruto-kun's left arm is all bandaged up and he's kneeling on the ground crying, and there's red all around him like it's trying to consume him." Hinata's eyes glowed a silver, white color before going back to lavender, and she stared at the boy, who had quickly came to her side. "Naruto? Why's his arm bandaged?" Why's he crying? Neji asked. He remembered Hinata and he met Naruto back when Hinata was 4 and he himself was 5. Some boys were bullying Hinata when he had arrived there to stop them, but he was beaten to the punch by a blonde-headed boy who saved Hinata. So from that day on, Hinata and himself had become friends with Naruto quickly. I don't know Neji ni. But he looked so sad. The girl cried out into her cousin's chest. Namikaze compound. Naruto sat outside as the sun started setting. He let out a bitter laugh. I can't believe it. Even after they forgot about me, I still hope deep down they'll come back. But it's been 10 hours and I feel so cold. I wonder, would my sisters be happy if I died? Naruto couldn't help but think these things. After all, he lost too much blood and it was getting colder by the minute now that the sun set. 6 hours later, an hour before midnight. Naruto let out a cough. He looked like he was wearing a white full body suit, however this just happened to be a thin layer of frost coating his body while both arms lay limp at his side. His lips were purple and his skin tone looked like a bluish mixed with peach, his hair no longer the bright sun-kissed yellow, now it was a dull yellow. Gem-like amethyst violet eyes peeked from behind his eyelids. If you looked closely you would see a broken soul. He glanced at the sky, seeing a full moon with brightly lit stars in the sky, and fresh tears rolled down his marked cheeks. If this is how my life ends, well damn. What a life. Neglected for my sisters. Ignored by most of the other clan children. Ah, what a life. My only friends Hinata, Neji, and Itachi. Jiraiya Uro, Tsunade Ka-chan, Mikoto Ka-chan, Katsumoba, Biwako Oba, Shizune, Anko Ne, Tuchi-san and Ayame-chan. I'll miss you. Naruto thought as he felt a tremor wreck his small body that he couldn't feel anymore. Slowly a bittersweet smile made its way across his face. His eyes dimmed, slowly losing all the life they once had, and just as the fireworks went off exploding in a shower of different colors, the last bit of life left his eyes and his pulse stopped. Festival. Minato and Kushina had gotten all the clan children and the children played while the parents got drunk, except for the Uchihas because Itachi just came back from a mission. Fugaku was stuck doing paperwork, Mikoto believed she had a stomach virus, and Sasuke was sick with flu. The Hyuga cousins were watching and looking where Naruto was because they only arrived a few hours earlier at like 5 because their father was called to a meeting quickly by the elders, and when they arrived they thought maybe Tsunade was with him or had him somewhere, but now that the fireworks just went off and everyone was gathered around, neither Hyuga could spot Naruto anywhere, and that left a sense of dread in their stomachs, especially since Hinata's vision. Poof! Suddenly white smoke covered the area and out popped Jiraiya of the Sannin, grinning like a mad thing as both Nariko and Nanami ran over to him demanding what they got for their birthday, and everyone else surrounded. Now children. Because Minato is my student, I will be allowing you to sign the Toad contract. Now where's Naruto? I want him to sign first, after all he was born 5 minutes before you girls. Naruto? Naruto, you brat, where are you? Kushina? Minato? Where is the brat? I know Shizune and Tsunade's at the research department. This question was answered with a deadly amount of silence which left Jiraiya uneasy. Minato and Kushina paled while Nariko and Nanami looked a little angry but also devious. Oh my gosh. Minato, we forgot him at home. Og, let's hope he didn't trash the house. You know how he pranks. He'll probably forgive us when we let him sign the Toad contract. Let's go home quickly. Kushina said, and all the clan mothers looked at her in shock. How could she forget her own son? Minato nodded and they all, including the other clan heads and their children, made their way to the Namikaze compound, not knowing the horrifying scene that shall forever be embedded in their memories. Uchiha compound. Mikoto decided since she was feeling better she would drag Itachi, Sasuke and her husband with to the Namikaze compound, thinking that they will meet the family along the way to give their wishes, not knowing Itachi's life would change to the event he was about to witness. Namikaze compound. The minute Minato and Kushina opened the gates, they were hit by a heavy smell of iron, a smell they knew all too well. The children let out screams at the horrifying bloody gates and snow-covered pathway that was now looking like a bloody puddle. Before anyone could do anything, Hinata and Neji ran in a certain direction of the gardens in the compound. Itachi and Mikoto soon followed not a minute later, and after knocking the other children out they all ran in the same direction as the others, only to come to a sudden stop as they gazed upon the scene. Naruto-kun. Hinata yelled as she dropped to her knees, tears free falling from her eyes, and Neji stood behind her throwing up and crying too. Mikoto was no better than Hinata, she too was on her knees. Itachi was too, but his eyes changed. First it flashed red, then it turned into his Sharingan with 3 comers before it turned into what looked like a windmill shuriken, but only the legs were longer and sharper looking than a shuriken. The scene before them made their hearts stop for a moment. There, under the same tree that he sat under when he was 4 reading about advanced chakra manipulation, was the figure of Naruto. Blood red snow beneath him, his now lifeless amethyst violet eyes were half open as if staring back at them accusing, and the bittersweet smile he wore was still upon his face as if frozen for eternity. "My baby!" Mikoto cried out, sobbing while shooting up and running to him and clutching his small frozen frame against her own bigger one, running her hand through his now dulled blonde hair. "It's going to be okay. Honey, Ka-chan's here, baby, Ka-chan's here now, everything will be fine." She sobbed, rocking back and forth while one thought ran through the other clan's heads: why is Mikoto crying like his her son? Poor woman looks distraught, and Kushina and Minato are frozen in shock and horror. The full moon shone over the scene as Jiraiya was on his knees with tears running down his face. He suddenly got up and slapped both Kushina and Minato across their faces, snapping them out of their daze, and Kushina suddenly started crying, whispering, "My baby, oh my baby," over and over while Minato shook, crying silently. "This is your entire fault. If you just cared more about your son than always about your daughters, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Now let's get your fucking son to Tsunade to see what she can do about your fuck up." Jiraiya barked at them and Kushina cried some more before making her way over to Mikoto, who still rocked Naruto back and forth, and she took Naruto's body out her best friend's arms, who was shaking badly. "Miko-chan. Let's go to the hospital." She never got to finish because Mikoto stood up and slapped her across her tear-stained face while glaring daggers at her, a true Uchiha glare that never before was directed at her. And it left her speechless and standing with Naruto's ice-cold body in her arms. "You not his mother? Or a friend of mine?" Mikoto said, and walked away before Kushina followed her, silently crying more as she and everyone else made their way to the hospital in silence, with the sobs of Hinata loud in their ears. Hospital. Tsunade and Shizune gave up. They really did. They spent a whole day's worth of time with Naruto wasted at the research department, and in the end they got nothing from the stupid fucking rock that seemed to glow brighter, and it was just a ways from illuminating the room. Tsunade sighed that idiot Jiraiya got to see her Naru-chan before her. That was unfair. She mentally pouted. Bang. The doors banged open and a gasping, teary-eyed Shizune made her look at the door's direction, and what she saw only brought back memories of her past love and dead brother and made her heart boil with anger. Naruto. What the fuck happened to him? Minato, Kushina. Answer me. Tsunade roared in anger, looking at the boy before her who lied in a teary-eyed Kushina's arms, who was rushing to her silently, with Mikoto lurking with tears behind her and glowing red eyes showing why she was the Uchiha head's wife. "I have a guess," Minato said palely as Tsunade turned her deadly golden brown eyes to him and then back to Kushina, and then she slowly looked down at Naruto. He had no pulse. "I want a good damn fucking explanation from you. Shizune. Get yourself together. You nurses. Get a goddamn stretcher. ASP. Now." Tsunade yelled the last part, and the nurses ran off and did just that. With Tsunade. "Come on, Naruto. Damn it, don't leave me. Beat, you stupid heartbeat." Tsunade thought as tears fell from her eyes, looking down at the small boy that lied before her on a table, and another doctor came to her and shook his head, and she still tried along with Shizune, who also cried. Unknown place. Naruto. Wake up. Open your eyes. Your beautiful eyes. A voice was heard in the endless white around him, and he suddenly found himself lying on lush green grass and a clear blue sky above him. Where am I? Am I dead? Naruto thought, and then there was a laugh sounding like chiming glass bells, and he sat up and looked around until he found the source of the sound. A beautiful woman with bright red hair and violet eyes walked towards him. She was fair and slim. She wore a white robe-like kimono that reached her ankles. Her hair was tied up in 2 buns on top of her head, and paper tags dangling from the senbon needles poking out on either side of her buns. The kimono was simple with silver and gold designs on it, and she walked barefoot towards him with a mother's smile upon her face. as she helped him stand. Naruto. You are the heir to the Uzumaki legacy. Yes, you have died but not for long. You are in the realm of choosing. This is the Uzumaki legacy. My name is Mito Uzumaki. I will be explaining to you about your blood rights, however it will be locked in your mind until you gain back what you have lost. The woman said, and with every word she said Naruto felt shocked, happy and confusion. He was happy he was meeting an ancestor, especially since she, from what he read in the history books, was the clan heir until she passed away after the Uzumaki was destroyed and his mother got to the village, yet she never named someone next in line for heir. What do you mean? How can I be the clan's heir? I mean, I didn't do anything. And I don't even know any clan Fuinjutsu. This was said with his head drooping and a frown. Mito's mouth frowned downwards and she put her hand on his shoulder. You, out of everyone out there, have the true heart and soul of a clan leader. Your intelligence, strategic mind, will and determination, and naturally seeing the good in everything. Even the family that neglected you. Don't take revenge. Just show them what they missed out on, but don't forgive them, tolerate but never forget. You face many challenges ahead of you. Mito told him with a small smile upon her lips. Meanwhile, in the realm of the living, only a few seconds had gone by and Tsunade and Shizune were still trying to revive him, but only managed to regenerate some tissue for his arm, but they could do nothing about the destroyed chakra coils in his left arm. Outside, Kushina and Minato got verbal beatdowns by Mikoto and it made them feel like shit, while Hinata and Neji refused to leave the hospital until they got word of Naruto, while many of the other clans went home shaking their heads at the couple, and Itachi sat on the other end perking up every time a doctor walked past. Back in the Uzumaki realm of choosing, Naruto sat listening to what was going on and what was going to happen when he gets sent back. I can't believe this. And no one knew this, only from one clan head to the next? And when I get back, my memories of this place will be sealed until I choose of my own will what my next steps will be, and if I don't choose the right one, my memories and my heir rights will be wiped clean like my mother. Also, there's a glowing purple rock that you sealed a lot of your chakra, including half of your soul in? And it will come to me the minute I take the right path? Then now that you told me everything, I guess you're going to send me back? Naruto asked why was his life so troublesome? In the realm of the living, Shikamaru sneezed. Yes, but before that, remember about the prophecy. You will regain what you have lost, for the future has been foretold, or all will be lost, for the greater events that will soon happen, and the heir of Whirlpool, who holds a great burden of hatred, will need to rise above all that's against him. Now Naruto, are you ready to go back? Mito asked, and he nodded, remembering the prophecy she told him that he was a part of. After he nodded, Mito leaned forward and placed a kiss on his forehead and watched him slowly get a blank and confused look before fading away. She sighed and rubbed her wrist where a seal was seen. The seal held the Uzumaki's white crest with gold outlines around it. It appeared when she proved herself to her grand-uncle Ashina Uzumaki, the eldest brother to her grandfather. She became heir when she was 16, and it seemed so long ago. Realm of the living. Bump. Be-bump. Be-bump. Tsunade heard a heartbeat and she let fresh tears fall, but in joy. Shizune was in a similar state while all the doctors cheered. After stabilizing him, Shizune and Tsunade went to the family to give them the news. She saw Jiraiya sitting with his head between his knees, Minato holding a still crying Kushina while he cried himself, Hinata and Neji sitting by Mikoto, who promised the Hyuga she'll take care of them. Mikoto herself was looking exhausted and sick, and you could tell she's been vomiting by the pale shaking hands. Itachi sat a seat away from his mother, and Fugaku held a sleeping Sasuke on his lap, unconsciously holding Sasuke tighter to him because of what had happened to Naruto. He didn't want it to happen with his son, so he decided he'll lay off them. Tsunade cleared her throat and got their attention, and they all jumped. He is alive, she said with a tired smile. She couldn't help but think there was something else at play here, because he had been dead for at least an hour when he got to the hospital, and then it took an hour to revive him, but she was grateful for little mercies. And we managed to save his arm. However, the good news stops there. The bad news is that he did die, but we revived him in time and he will not be able to use his arm for months. That's where it gets worse. He will never be able to be a ninja. His chakra coils are destroyed in his arm and his chakra system was broken and can't be replaced. At this, everything was silent before the crying started again. What are we going to tell him? Jiraiya asked softly, and no one answered. That is until Minato did. As Hokage, everyone is banned from saying anything to him about his chakra coils until Kushina or I tell him. Is that clear? He said, and everyone was shocked, and while most nodded in acceptance, Tsunade, Jiraiya and Mikoto angrily stomped off with words of, if he asks us we will tell him the truth. With Naruto. Naruto looked at the ceiling. He couldn't remember anything else but that his family had forgotten him and that it showed they obviously don't care. Kushina and Minato walked into the room and watched him, and even when they tried talking to him he didn't say anything except facial expressions until he asked how long it would take to use his arm again, and after he got his answer he went to sleep. Unknown place. So they finally made their move, huh? Well, we'll see. All the pieces are finally moving. Now it's my turn. A dark-eyed man said, chuckling before smirking and moving a piece on the shogi board. Was the future really as black and white? Or was there something lurking between the light and dark side of the equilibrium? A month had passed since the accident. Kushina and Minato just either didn't think Naruto had a right to know about his chakra system or didn't have the heart to crush the boy. While Naruto never asked about why the people around him looked so sympathetic towards him, he did ask when he'll be able to use his arm again, because he thought they looked towards him like that because of not being able to use his arm. While his sisters were way more bitchy now because he was getting attention from their parents even if he didn't really want it now. Tsunade, Shizune, Katsume, Biwako, Jiraiya, Anko, Itachi, Neji, Hinata and Mikoto came to visit him every now and again, and they the only ones he'd smile at. Well, including Shishu, who'd only came back from a long mission. Shishu and he weren't close before because the guy was always busy, especially since he was in Anbu. However, they also became somewhat friends since he was given a leave for 2 months. Though many of the people that actually cared for him weren't there most of the time because they were all very busy, and that was understandable being the people they are. Despite everything, Naruto still trained without his parents' knowledge of cause. After the accident, he decided he needed to learn some medic ninjutsu in case something like that happened again. He asked Tsunade and Shizune and they agreed immediately, since Tsunade had found him walking up the side of the room walls, which she thought impossible, but soon she and Shizune started teaching him medical ninjutsu. Senju Compound. Tsunade lay upon her bed and thought about the events that happened and how Naruto was still able to use chakra. She remembered telling Naruto she was just going to give him a checkup, and she secretly found out that because Naruto had perfect chakra control for a child, and even though she believed he will never be able to use chakra in his body at all, she found out because of his control he was able to use the chakra in him, but just barely. But it saddened her to know she couldn't tell him anything until Minato or Kushina told him. That, however, didn't mean she wouldn't teach him medical jutsus, although secretly just between Naruto, Shizune and herself. She was happy he could at least use some chakra from his broken coils. Thinking about it made her frown. Maybe he inherited one good thing from Kushina then, and that was the Uzumaki healing abilities, but even she knew it would take the vitality of someone like her grandmother, Mito, to heal a chakra system that was broken in 20 places, these places being his 2 parts by his stomach, 3 parts in his arm that was damaged badly, 7 along his ribs, another 3 in his left leg, 2 in his other arm, 1 by his shoulder blades and 2 near his heart. This really scared her, but even above all odds he worked hard to use even a little of his chakra, and that put a smile on her face. With Naruto. Naruto smiled lightly. A month ago Mikoto found out she was pregnant, and when she told him he was so happy for her. Soon Naruto found himself frowning again. He obviously was only released from the hospital last month, and he was slowly accepting his parents back into his heart unknowingly, and his sisters were still trying to direct the attention back to themselves, and it was working slowly. It was just a matter of time. Naruto shook his head and thought on better matters, like he had learned to cast jutsu with one hand. Now wasn't that cool? Now he could perform jutsu while keeping his other hand free. And he learned, or better yet completed, his genjutsu that he had been trying to get down the day before his parents forgot him. It was called Mira. This allowed him to be somewhere without people or the affected person to see, or more like ignore his presence, and they won't pay him much thought, almost as if making himself invisible to that person or people. So it soon became that his favorite thing to do was use his sisters as test subjects for this jutsu, because he could make himself invisible to them, so even if he was there they wouldn't pay any attention to him. That's unless he made physical contact or spoke too loudly, but also he made it so that if you didn't notice him you won't think about him much, only and maybe like a passing thought. He made this with the intention of not being noticed so he won't get into trouble and so he could train in peace. He loved this genjutsu and thought if he mastered it one day it could become a base for another genjutsu that would be better than this one, but the original had a fault that if someone who wasn't affected by the genjutsu starts up a conversation about the caster. Another thing is the medical ninjutsu. That had taken him a month to get down one jutsu. And although it wasn't grad, it was something, and the basics are always something to know even if it was E-ranked. Naruto pouted and decided to rather sleep than carry on pondering over the last 2 months. Dream? Naruto suddenly found himself in an empty white abyss and saw a flash of something, then a deep male voice rang out all around him. Strength is power, descendant, but strength of the heart is more powerful. Remember, the voice spoke but most parts couldn't be heard, and Naruto tried calling out but the voice would speak, but then some parts were blocked out so he couldn't hear. Suddenly he found himself falling in a black abyss and he was screaming. There was suddenly a burning in his chest like flames coming out as if to consume him and swallow him whole. End dream. It was 1 in the morning when Naruto awoke, startled and breathing hard. He tried to move, feeling an incredible pain throughout his body. That's when he noticed Nariko and Nanami both laying beside him with their heads on his chest. Naruto found it hard to breathe, let alone demand they get off him, so instead, with every fiber in his body screaming at him not to move, he wriggled, shaking the girls awake. "What the hell are you doing in my room? You too, Nanami?" This was said by a very irritated Nariko for being woken up at such an ungodly hour. Nanami looked confused around the room before looking at her brother, then looking at Nariko, telling her this was not their rooms and it was his. Although said harshly, the two girls quickly left to their own rooms, not paying attention to their very pale brother, who had immediately ran to the basin in his bathroom and started vomiting. Red. That's what Naruto saw, all in the basin. It was like the tiles were turned red, only that wasn't the case because he knew something was wrong now. Suddenly feeling dizzy, he managed to stumble out the bathroom only to fall face first towards his bed, and then he knew no more. 3 hours later. Naruto woke up and in his still dizzy state he wandered down the hall, but as he paced at his parents' room he heard their voices and he stopped as he heard his name mentioned. Room. Kushina sat on the bed watching Minato get ready to go to the Hokage office. Lately she felt a lot more moody and her stomach was giving her problems, always cramping. She watched Minato slip on his Jounin vest and tie his headband on. "Minato, when are we going to tell Naruto? I mean, we've been putting it off all this time and it keeps his hopes up and being more hopeful," she said, sighing, and Minato came and sat beside her and slowly stroked her hair and she leaned in towards him. "Kushina, we'll tell him soon, okay? But we can't right now come out and say, hey Naruto, don't take it the wrong way, but using my influence as Hokage, I told everyone not to tell you that you will never reach your dreams because your arm's chakra coils are completely destroyed and your entire network has been broken into almost 20 places, so you will never be able to use chakra or become a ninja ever. Yeah, Kushina, I doubt that would play out well, especially since we messed up big time with most of our friends because of the accident." This was said in a dry tone with a very blank look, and Kushina sighed, wondering why things couldn't be easier. Naruto. Naruto's mouth was on the floor. He wasn't going to be a ninja again because of them? That wasn't fair. Slowly tears pooled in his eyes, falling to the floor, and he ran out, not caring that he was still a bit dizzy. He ran past everything and everyone. He had soon ran into a forbidden district, where a lot of the Kyuubi's chakra that wasn't sealed fast enough lurked. Why? Why didn't they tell me? Did I not have the right to know? How could they? I hate them. I hate this place. I wish I can just leave and never come back. Naruto cried out to the heavens in anguish as he held his arm. Naruto cried on his knees, holding his arm. The complete anguish in his sobs was the only sounds ringing in the clearing. Suddenly green chakra came swirling all around the clearing from the forest. This was also a type of healing chakra, but only if it had two, though it never found much that perked its interest. But Naruto didn't notice this because his eyes were shut as if in pain, as his heart clenched painfully in his chest. Soon, without him noticing, the swirling mass of green chakra covered him completely. This chakra was what had consumed the Kyuubi's chakra and turned it into its own. The chakra had one instinct, and that was to find out why this boy was in such a state, never having sensed such before. So when it touched him, it was shocked, being leftover chakra that was just left around after people died. It had felt loss and pain but never a broken soul to this extent. The green chakra disappeared, but having a bit of a mind its own, it decided to watch this boy, being curious as to why this boy had dark wisps of red chakra in his system that was seemingly killing him slowly from the inside and was oddly like the Kyuubi's chakra. Sometime later, after 2 hours of non-stop crying and screaming, Naruto decided to get himself together and stood up, looking for the first time at his surroundings, and saw a few buildings that looked a bit old and not maintained. So in childish anger and curiosity, he walked into a random building and looked around. The place was a mess with rats and insects running about. Growing even more curious, he followed a hallway and came to a staircase leading down, so he walked down slowly, only to see a few doors here and there until something caught his eyes. It was a wall on the right. It looked a bit skew, so he walked up to the wall and pushed. At first it didn't budge. After a second time it crumbled in on itself, showing a hallway. Naruto followed it without thinking, and some of the green chakra that decided to just rest a little in his arm that was in the sling, grew weary at the feel of the place. Soon he came upon a room. It looked like some kind of messed up lab. There was a bed in the middle, like one from hospitals, only this was matted with blood, dried blood. There were about 20 different bottled liquids of different colors with funny writing on them that was faded. Then there was 2 basins on the other side. All in all, the place gave off a bad vibe. Naruto walked around a bit until he decided to see what those bottles contained. He took one off the shelf and tried to read it, but instead it slipped, and without thinking he tried to catch it, only it ended up cutting his unusable hand, and watched it heal up quickly after the liquid sunk into the wounds. Naruto yelped and checked his arm, and he felt like he could move it a bit. In an act of complete hope and stupidity, he collected all the bottles and poured the sink full of the stuff, leaving the bottles empty and on one side. He mixed it with a piece of broken wood. Once he was satisfied, he unwrapped all the bandages and braced himself. Ah! He let out a scream as the liquid burned his arm. He quickly fell to the floor, mentally shouting at himself for being stupid. Why did you do that? Ugh! It hurts so much. You just had to get hopeful and do that. You idiot. How you gonna leave Konoha now if you gonna die? Please. Someone help me. Please. These were Naruto's thoughts before he blacked out from the pain. The green chakra in his arm was panicked. The first thing that spilled into the wounds was dealt with quickly, but also took quite a bit effort, leaving the green chakra with hardly anything left because of how strong that acid was. And now this. Just when it was getting more curious about the boy, so it did the only thing it could do. It called on all the other green chakra that lie bored around the place to help it save the person it was curious about. The other green chakra responded and were there in no time. All the chakra surrounded Naruto and forced itself into the boy. Naruto could be thankful that this chakra was trying to help him and that his coils were broken in those 20 places, otherwise this could have turned out very badly for him. However, no one would ever expect the future outcome of this. Hokage's office. I want all Jounin here ASAP. There was a sudden chakra surge in the condemned areas that are still going down to be rebuilt, and we need to know exactly what happened and how it happened. Minato was not happy as he yelled out orders to his assistant. Kushina stood off to the side while Jiraiya leaned against the wall with a frown. All these things were frustrating Minato out. How could there be such a strong surge? I know it didn't come from the girls. I was with them the whole day until you called me here. This was said by a very worried Kushina, who had indeed been with the girls training them in weapons. Jiraiya grunted and Minato sighed. Naruto. Naruto groaned. He was suddenly stunned with his memories of what happened and how it happened. He suddenly slapped himself hard. Ow. How could I have been so stupid? Shit, ow, what the hell? Everything hurts. What happened? This was Naruto's thoughts as he shifted from the floor until his eyes widened comically and he let out a yell. What the heck? Gosh. My other arm works. Kami. I think that stuff in the bottles did this. Og, stupid Naruto. Stupid. You really shouldn't have done that. This is what was shouted out as the boy slapped himself with both hands when he had realized both his hands were working, but also let out a whoop and started cheering until he remembered why he was so angry and sad, and then he frowned and blinked away the oncoming tears. How am I going to explain this? Wait a minute, I said I was gonna leave this hellhole and never come back. So I'll only hide this with the bandages. As he thought this, Naruto quickly performed one-hand seals for a henge in case there were other changes and felt like the blockage of his coils wasn't there anymore. After performing the henge, he looked at himself in a broken mirror and nodded happy to himself. He decided to figure everything out when he left Konoha. Quickly Naruto left, not noticing that the basin was empty and the teams of jounin around the area. As he was on his way back to the compound, he found out he's been out for a day and a half, and he started rushing away until he saw some girls surrounding a pink-headed girl. They were all bullying this girl. Suddenly he felt anger build up in him and stormed their way. "Hey! What's going on here? Leave her alone. Go home." After he said this, all the girls scattered at the anger in his voice never heard before, so they were all quick to run away. This left Naruto alone with the pink-headed girl who was crying in the middle of the park. "Hey, are you okay? What's your name?" "I'm Naruto. Why was those girls bothering you?" Naruto asked gently, sitting down in front of the girl, and she sniffed and shook her head. "You not here to tease me, are you?" she asking softly, stuttering and looking at him with emerald green eyes, making him blink and shake his head. "I'm Sakura Haruno, and they always tease me about my forehead. I don't know why I have a big forehead. It's not my fault," she yelled before sobbing into her knees with her body shaking, and Naruto patted her head with the hand that wasn't damaged before he fixed it. "I'm sorry. Your forehead isn't that big. They lying to you just because you must be really smart," he told her, smiling softly, and she looked up with hopeful eyes. "Here, take this," he said, pulling out a purple string that he used as a bookmark from his pocket and tied it double on her wrist. "I'm going home now, bye," Naruto said, waving at her, and she smiled a little smile and wiped her tears away. "Bye, Naruto-kun," she yelled, her voice cracking a little from all her crying. Later that night, when Naruto returned home, the place was empty. He went to his room, undid the henge, and looked in the mirror, noticing some changes. His hair now had black streaks mingled with the blonde, his eyes appeared more intense, and his whisker marks were lighter, hinting they might fade as he grew older. His face had a slightly sharper look, making him appear older and less like his parents, which he appreciated. "Wow, I wonder if that medication caused this. Maybe I should check if my jutsu still work properly," Naruto thought, admiring his new appearance. He created a shadow clone, a skill he had learned by secretly watching Kushina teach the girls. He spent the rest of the day testing his genjutsu, medical ninjutsu, the academy's basic 3 jutsus, and a bit of fuin jutsu. He discovered he could perform longer without chakra exhaustion. Genjutsu casting was easier and required less concentration, and the few low C-rank ninjutsu he knew were stronger and quicker to execute. He also realized he had a slight chakra sense, a revelation that came when he felt Kushina's chakra as she returned home. This added to his growing list of questions, and he decided to maintain the henge until he could buy some blonde dye to avoid detection. He planned to leave over the weekend to familiarize himself with his new appearance and abilities, gather supplies, and plan his escape. Unknown. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a woman wearing a blue dress banged a wooden desk in frustration. She wore a scowl on her face as she read the scroll again. 100 children killed, 1,000 men and women killed. 12 ice users from the Yuki clan. 20 Hozuki clan members. Others, all smaller clans, dead in different ways. Hey family, that's all for now. Please subscribe to my channel, Anime Dreams, for more content. Thank you and love you all. Anime Dreams.